This is it. We have made it to the end of the countdown. The top 2 games of the year 2021 season begins next.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, everybody. This is the Throwback Thursday episode that you have been waiting for. I'm Dominic Cotroneo with Vinny Rottino. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. He is a former big leaguer turned broadcaster. I am a play-by-play broadcaster turned statistician. We are here telling you everything you need to know about the Brewers and finishing our series finally of the top games of the 2021 season. If you've missed any of them, we're going to go over them briefly. Top 20 games are all on your feed. Just scroll up on your podcasts or on YouTube as well. And you can find them there as well. We got some headlines to get to here first, but Vinny, we're finally at the end. How are we feeling about the end of this countdown? So we all know what the top 2 games are, but it's a big moment. 10 episodes down.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we're unveiling something really, really big here, even though everyone kind of knows what's behind the curtain. But I think I don't have beef with any of these games. So if everyone understands, Dom put this list together, and I think he is spot on. I don't know if I'd change anything about it. So we'll find out who the last 2 games are. But I think, Dom, you did a great job of ranking these games.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. So before we jump into these, we do want to talk about headlines. Of course, we are still in a lockout, in case you weren't aware. And today there is going to be a step forward in negotiations. Today, this Thursday, the players and the owners are going to be meeting again at 1 o'clock Eastern time. We'll see what happens out of it. I would not expect a deal. We're not at that point yet. It's just not going to happen in the blink of an eye. But I want to make something, I want to clear something up. People saying, oh, now why aren't the players going to the bargaining table? Why aren't the players going to that? Well, the reason is they felt they have made a fair proposal. And this is the negotiating of it, is that the players have made it clear of that we're not budging from these spots. Is it fair to the fans to not go to the negotiating table? That's for the fans to decide. Personally, I'm a little annoyed by it, but it's negotiating. It's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create pressure onto the owners to act faster. If they want to get this done by the end of February, that they want to start applying pressure to get what they wish, and that's, negotiating 101. Now, as for the owner side of things, their last offer was it's been 10 days since they've met last. So this could be interesting. I don't think we're going to have a deal, obviously, but the details of this meeting should be very, very, I don't want to say encouraging yet, but the details, there's a lot riding on the details that come out of this meeting.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I wish they would meet every day, or
that's what I think should be happening.
Yeah, and hopefully that's what we'll see after this meeting, because, again, I'm with you. I don't think there's going to be a deal that presents itself that is going to be able to be agreed upon by either side. So I think at some point they're going to need to start meeting. I mean, pitchers and catchers are supposed to report today, right? So we are 43 days, I think, from scheduled opening day. So they better get moving on this, a couple of weeks away before that March 1st kind of tentative deadline. So hopefully something really good comes out of this meeting.
No, yeah, exactly. I agree with you too, is that at this point it's on both of them. I know the players saying, well, they haven't come to the table and things like that. At some point, you just got to be the bigger person, and it's not going to happen with this bitter of a negotiation, but I think they would all be looked upon as heroes if they get this done on time, right? I mean, this is,
yeah.
I feel like we're losing sight of it, that, I'm going to continue to preach positivity, but now we're heading into that crunch time. There's still time to repair this, and I don't know if either side sees that yet.
I mean, I think they're smart enough to understand that, and I hope that they are. I think it is posturing. I think it is them applying pressure to each other's side. At the end of the day, I mean, they're fans. Here's me as a fan. I think fans would be upset, obviously, and it would take them a while to forgive if they lost any of the season, right? I think they're going to lose part of their fan base if they decide to carry this into the regular season. I think there's more pressure on the owners to get something done because of that, right? I just feel that way, and maybe the players union knows that.
Mm-hmm. That's fair. And just to put it and one little bow on it, what I fear the players are doing is they're trying to make up for losses they've had over the last 2 negotiations in one negotiation, and that's just not going to happen. And vice versa, the owners, they know the power that they're in. They know how, the chair has become stronger while they've sat in it, during these last 2 negotiations. So do they want to concede anything? Of course they don't. It's frustrating. It's sickening sometimes, but I don't know. I'm just not quite, ready to jump ship, obviously. You say, they're not going to get it done. Opening day is going to be missed. But I think the first bead of sweat is starting to fall depending on what happens with today's meeting.
That's the first bead of sweat I've seen so far from you, Dom. So
well, it depends on what today's meeting is, okay?
Yeah,
so
true.
I'm not ready to hit the panic button yet. But let's talk about brighter things. Let's talk about the top 20 games of the year. That is this episode, and that's the things we're talking about. Now, instead of having you scroll up, I want to just go through our list of what we've made to this point, okay? Let's talk about the honorable mentions first here, Vinny. The honorable mentions had 2 games in April, and then 2 games in the second half. The San Diego game in San Diego, the great Billy McKinney catch, Corbin Burns start. That was an honorable mention on April 20th. That was the day that it snowed here in Milwaukee, by the way, if you do recall. That was my first time seeing snow in Milwaukee. April 14th, a week earlier, was Burns striking out 10 Cubs in a home shutout, which is always fun. And then also the August 7th loss against San Francisco, the back-and-forth game that went into extras, and Adames and Urias hit homers in the 11th inning trying to make an epic comeback and didn't work out. And then July 23rd, the Tyrone Taylor Grand Slam against the Chicago White Sox with the honorable mentions. I think these were fair. The one I really wanted to get in was the Tyrone Taylor Grand Slam, but those just were the ones that were just on the outside looking in.
And we talked about that game that they lost to the Giants being an honorable mention for one of the greatest games of the year, a loss, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked about if it was a win, that probably would have been bumped up into the top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. So that we have an honorable mentions episode as well, so go up and check those out. Okay, I'm just going to go in order with a quick little note of 20 to 2. Or maybe we take a break in the middle of it, but this is what it is. Okay, number 20 was April 7th against the Cubs, the Lorenzo Cain game, the 2 homers. They win in extras over Chicago. Number 19 was on August 21st. That was the Yelly game. He hit 2 homers against the Washington Nationals. Number 18, June 28th against the Cubs. That was the 10-run 8th inning with the Willie Grand Slam. On August 12th, that's game number 17. The 17 runs scored at Wrigley in the Sunday finale, and Urias set a team record with 5 extra base hits in that game. Number 16 was Memorial Day, the walk-off that Wicho had in that game. June 19th, number 15 was the Adames go-ahead home run in Colorado to take the lead in the top of the 9th inning, down to their last strike, mind you. That's only number 15. And I can't believe I put it that high in retrospect, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, the rest of this list makes sense, I promise. I know. I look at you like looking in your eyes like, oh yeah, I remember that game, because that's how this whole list is, right?
Totally. No, totally. Yeah, I mean, there's just game after game, and this is what this Brewers team brought to the fan base, and what we had the privilege of seeing. There were this many great games for the Brewers that one was number 15.
Yep. So moving on, number 14. May 1st against the Dodgers at home. That was the bullpen battle that Travis Shaw won in extras. It took 11 innings to win it. The number 13 game was in St. Louis on August 18th. That was an Avisario Garcia hit a home run to tie off Alex Reyes in the 9th. And then Yelich had a squeeze bunt in the top of the 10th to help win it. His speed legs it out. He scored from first on a wacky play. It was a wild finish to that one. Number 12 game was Freddie Peralta flirting with a no-hitter against the Arizona Diamondbacks on June 4th. June 25th, reopening day. That's number 11. That was the walk-off by Keston Hiura. They had a great comeback, and Willie Adames hit a home run in that game as well. Number 10, the opening day walk-off, no-brainer. Orlando Arcia, top 10 game of the year, no doubt. Number 9, the day they clinched the playoffs. That was September 26th against the Mets. Number 8 is Willie's first Brewer home run in a come-from-behind win over the San Diego Padres on May 27th. Personally, aside from today's games, today's games are a different echelon. Personally, the May 27th game against the Padres is my game of the year, given looking back in retrospect what it meant to the team, and that's number 8 on this list.
So I'm curious why. So you have your own personal list of top games, or
like
is that just your favorite
you remember
game?
the most, or like had so
Gotcha.
much fun at, and things like that? I mean, looking at it objectively, it's like, how can you rank a May 27th game that really doesn't matter that
point.
much versus some of the rest of this list? But again, we can all pick our favorites. I just love this game so much because, again, Willie's first home run, Jackie Bradley Jr. had a walk-off base hit in this one. Really well-pitched game. It was super fun to work as well. That's just a little near and dear to my heart. That's all. Nothing crazy.
No, I'm with you because I would have actually picked, if we're kind of talking about what the most memorable game was. It was when the Brewers clinched at home against the Mets for me. But yeah, I mean, in retrospect, like you said, though, it wasn't that exciting of a game. They were up 6-0, and then they had like a 6 or 7 game lead already on the Cardinals. So, but I'm with you in what you're talking about.
Number 7 was September 4th against St. Louis. If you don't recall, well, that was the Adrian Hauser complete game shutout. Number 6 was August 11th against the Cubs. That was when Burns struck out 10 straight batters, and they had a 7-run first inning while trouncing the Cubs that night at Wrigley. August 6th, 5 days earlier, was an awesome game. Burns versus Logan Webb of the Giants. Rowdy won in extras in the bottom of the 10th inning. Number 4 game was June 30th against the Cubs. The Bonkers down 7-0 after a half of an inning, and then he scored 15 straight unanswered. Number 3, game 1 of the playoffs. No-brainer. Rowdy's the hero again. Corbin Burns pitched great. And now we are at number 2 and number 1. Before we do that, before we reveal it, we're going to tell you about Built Bar, right? Built Bar, it's that time of year. We're here at the end of our middle of February, and your New Year's resolutions might be in shambles. Don't fret. You can pick them back up with Built Bar. You can try their amazing puffs as well. You're missing out on one of their best products. It's a protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, marshmallowy. You get that sweet treat, and it's not just a protein bar. They're actually, delicious, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate, just like the bars are. There's special flavors as well that come with the puffs. You got cinnamon churro, coconut marshmallow, and banana cream pie just on those. You've also got a special flavor in the bars going on right now. It's so much fun right now of all the different flavors they got rolling out right now. You can see their entire selection at built.com, BUILT.com. You can see the white chocolate cookies and cream that they got going on right now. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You can get all of this deliciousness at built.com with our promo code LOCKED15. That's promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order at built.com. Okay, Vinny, I put this on the list. You've seen the list of number 2 and number 1, but I'm going to throw you a curveball.
Oh, no. I couldn't hit
I'm just going to go ahead and say it right now. The number 1 and the number 2 games of the year. I've put the number 1 game of the year as the Daniel Vogelbach walk-off grand slam. And I put the no-hitter as number 2. And here's why. Quick number for you. 314 versus 30. Which number is greater? Which number is bigger? 314 or 30?
314.
That's how many no-hitters have happened in big league history. Okay? You following me?
Yep.
30. What number do you think that represents?
Walk-off grand slams.
Ultimate
type.
Grand slams.
Yeah.
When you're down by 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th, and a grand slam's the only way to win it. There have only been 30 ultimate walk-off grand slams. Okay? I think that constitutes it to be number 1.
I'm with you. This is one of the coolest moments I've ever seen on a baseball field. I know we're going to get into it, but really, is there anything else to talk about in this game?
There's a lot.
I know, but I mean, it was the hairs on my arm were standing up for a long time after that moment. It was absolutely incredible. So, ultimate grand slams. Can you explain? Is it 2 outs or doesn't it matter?
Doesn't need to be 2 outs. Now, David Bodie, the most previous one to the Daniel Vogelbachs, did come with 2 outs. So that's where it really kind of took off. Like, oh my gosh, that is the ultimate down to your last strike grand slam. But in recorded, history where we have play logs and things like that, there have been 30 registered ultimate grand slams. An instance where a grand slam wins the game. It's not one of those where it's in the bottom of the 8th inning and you take the lead on a grand slam. It's where you are trailing in the bottom of the 9th or bottom of extra innings and you win it on a grand slam. This ultimate sudden death. You're up by 3 runs and then you lose by 1. That is an ultimate grand slam.
So I'll never, Craig, if anyone knows who Craig Kashan, everyone knows who Craig Kashan is. He's my host, or the host for the pre and post game show. He is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my entire life. He is an absolutely tremendous human being. But sometimes when the games get a little bit long and the Brewers are losing, he gets kind of funny, right? And he'll say things like, he just says it just to kind of make the, whoever's listening laugh. And he was starting to get a little bit negative about the game, and then all of a sudden, when the bases got loaded, and I'm just telling this story only because I'm just remembering it now, and the bases got loaded, and then that ball, he started getting real excited, and you can see how his mood was changing, and that they had a chance to win it, and that happened. I'd never seen. I mean, me and him were just absolutely going nuts on the set there for the pre and post game show on the right field corner there. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, but that was one of the coolest parts about that moment too.
That's so great. We'll get into it too, but hey, we're not going to ignore a no-hitter. So let's jump into the no-hitter right now, okay? That's the first game we're going to recap here on our Throwback Thursday. All right, so the number 2 game of the year, and I can already hear you screaming at us through your podcast device, like, how could you put the second no-hitter in Brewers history second? Like, well, I just told you why. And look, let's be honest too. Like, it was a combined no-hitter. Would it be number 1 if Corbin Burns went the whole way? I can't say for certain because of how rare it is for a ultimate walk-off grand slam. However, a lot of people complain like, oh, it was a combined no-hitter. The dude threw 115 high-effort pitches in September. Your arm is already hanging in September, man. It was so impressive for what Corbin Burns did in this game against the Cleveland Guardians. I'm just so mad I wasn't working it, but it was a great game. Were you working this game? What was the lead up like?
No, I wasn't working the game. In fact, I didn't even watch the game. I had to watch the highlights afterwards. But question to you: does he stay in the game if it's a perfect game into the 9th?
That's a great question. And knowing Craig Counsell's tendencies, I don't think he does. I really don't think he does because he said it. He was gassed, man. He was out of gas. He was already throwing a career high in pitches. Like I said, it's September. This team is hoping for at least another month and a half of games to this point. Remember, it's September 11th, so you're thinking you've got at least another 6-7 weeks of baseball if you make it all the way to the World Series. You got to make sure he's got 6 or 7 more starts in him, and blowing him out there for one more inning, is that what's the straw that broke the camel's back? You don't want to remember that of saying, oh, I shouldn't have gone out there for the 9th. Safe than sorry, and I think it paid off. It's still a no-hitter, though.
It's a testament to where this team was at in terms of mindset. They were on a mission to win the World Series, right? And even Corbin Burns himself was like, look, the best thing for the team is for me to come out of this game and let Josh Hader finish this thing off. And so that is what is cool, right? I mean, I was in the dugout with the Mets as a player when Johan Santana threw a no-hitter going 140 pitches deep, and that ended his career, essentially. And it was cool for him on an individual level. It was cool for all of us to witness that live, but it was not cool for the team, and because he was under contract for a few more years for a lot of dollars, and it kind of finished him off. So, I think that is cool and a testament to where this team's mind was at. Everyone kind of knew, hey, he was done.
Yep. And another great thing that happened in this game, though, is that the Brewers got out to an early lead. So it wasn't, granted 3-0 isn't a massive lead or anything, but it allows a starter to really ease into a game. Right. And, when it turns out to be a no-hitter, you look back and say, well, hey, shoot, he got to, be relaxed as soon as the game started. And it wasn't like he was making high leverage pitches. There was a walk in this game, obviously, too. It wasn't a perfect game in that, there was a base runner against Corbin Burns. Whereas there were times you were thinking, oh man, it's a 0-0 game in the 6th inning and I just allowed a walk. What's going to happen? He didn't have to worry about that. And he got off, obviously, on a great foot. He struck out 5 of the first 6 batters and furthermore 7 of the first 9. So he certainly was feeling it. And oh, by the way, remember, this was 6 days after him mowing down a month after mowing down the Cubs, in which he struck out 14 in that game, 16 in that game, and had 10 straight strikeouts. I mean, he was on a roll the second half of the season en route to the Cy Young.
Yeah, this really solidified him as the favorite for the Cy Young. Also, if you remember, there was a few games after the Colorado start, and maybe after and I'm just saying this just because it's true. After the foreign substance rule came down, he had trouble. And I don't know if he was using anything or not, but he had trouble with that cutter for a couple of starts. He certainly figured it out. He went to Colorado, had a rough start. I'm not saying he floundered in the middle there during those starts. What I'm saying is, he had to make some adjustments, right? Mm-hmm. And he certainly did in this. And then that game you're talking about against the Cubs with the 10 straight strikeouts, and then this game obviously solidified him as the favorite for the Cy Young. And my goodness, I'm just glad that he's a Brewer, because you could just tell these guys do not want to face him. And Omar Narvaez was talking about his cutter in this game. It was 97 miles an hour, and it was acting like a slider. That's how nasty and how much movement he had on that pitch this game. And it's just fun to watch, to be honest. It's like watching Aaron Rodgers, seriously, or a really, really good quarterback out there just commanding everything and dominating, and that's what Corbin Burnes did pretty much all year for the Brewers.
So I wasn't there, nor was Brian Anderson. It was Craig Cashon on the call of this game, mind you, because right. Jeff was in Cleveland calling the game on radio. So Craig gets this feather in his cap of saying he got to call the no-hitter, and we talked to Rock, obviously, yesterday, talking to him about, being there and getting to see it happen live is such a cool full-circle moment. Of course, Rock caught the previous only no-hitter in Brewers history. In fact, the Brewers had the second longest drought between no-hitters active at the time of the no-hitter. It was over 5,000 days since the Juan Nieves no-hitter in 1987. Can you guess the team that has the longest drought currently?
I was just going to ask you. I couldn't even take a guess.
The irony of it, it's Cleveland. The irony is that their last no-hitter came in 1981. So May 15th, 1981. So now they're the ones with the longest drought, and they get no-hit against 3 times last year.
And that's surprising, too, with the arms that they've been throwing out there for the last half a decade or more, right? With Carrasco in his prime and Santana in his prime, and now all these... not Justin Bieber, oh my goodness. Shane Bieber, and all these up and coming pitchers. So yeah, that's surprising. I'm sure they'll get one sooner than later.
Now I talk about Cleveland, and I remind folks too, this game was in Cleveland. You know what that means, Vinny? Designated hitter. So here's my thought. Yes, Corbin made it 8 innings. If this game was in Milwaukee, I don't think there's any way he makes it 8 innings. Personally, his spot will come up a third time. I know he's got a no-hitter going, and he's probably at, let's look at it right now. I've got Baseball Reference up right now. The 9-hole hitter of this game for the Brewers was Rowdy Tellez, and then it became Pablo Reyes and Jackie Bradley Jr. later in the game. But when you look back at this lineup, his spot would have come up in the top of the 7th inning for his third at-bat. So if he was batting 9th, you would have had a decision right there to make. So then you would have had a combined no-hitter for 2 innings. And let's say Corbin Burnes gets on base and has to run the bases and have to do all this stuff while he's throwing a no-hitter. This is why I'm all for it, man. The dude's job is to pitch, okay? Let the man pitch. That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't want the DH, or I don't want the pitcher to hit anymore. I'm all for the DH. But yeah, I agree. Like he probably would have been taken out of the game because the Brewers still had to clinch for a playoff berth, and they were only up 3-0. And so there was 9 outs to get, and you needed more runs. And I'm sure that he would have been taken out of the game. So that's a really good point.
And then finally, I just want to make the point of the play. Every no-hitter has the play. Lorenzo Cain was the play in this one. And I also, ironically enough, it was against Owen Miller, Wisconsin's own Owen Miller. Hits a line drive on a hanging slider from Corbin Burnes to right center field. And for one, Lowe was shaded that way already, and he made a great break. And have you ever played defense behind a no-hitter? And can you explain how your senses and how everything just gets a little more heightened and that you want to be the guy that makes the epic play?
I would have been the guy that didn't want the ball hit to him for sure. But Yeah, so I've never been part of a no-hitter. I watched Manny Parra throw the third perfect game in Pacific Coast League history from the dugout. I was backup catcher that game, and so that was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. But yeah, I mean, you talk to the guys about that play and about defensively, especially in the ninth inning, on a perfect game that's only happened 2 other times in Pacific Coast League history. That league's been around for like 110 years, by the way.
Joe DiMaggio played in that league.
It was incredible. It was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen on a baseball field, and Manny Parra threw a perfect game. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to play defense behind that, because yeah, I mean, you definitely want to be the guy to help save it, but you also don't want to be the guy that like turns a routine hit or a routine ground ball into a hit somehow. But yeah, it was that was certainly a great play by Locane.
It was great, and then, lest we forget the great play Jace Peterson made in the ninth on a little looper on the warning track up the first base line. That was a great play, too, for a guy that was technically playing out of position and actually started the game in right field, too.
Yeah, Jace can play everywhere. I mean, he's not really out of position anywhere he plays, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy that brings a glove everywhere.
Some quick numbers to just wrap up the no-hitter as our number 2 game of the year. So again, 5,473 days since the last no-hitter in Brewers history, Juan Nieves in 1987. It was also the 16th ever combined no-hitter between the American League and the National League. So I mean, it's still a rare to have it combined since pitchers are meant to go the whole way. Also, 16 combined strikeouts between Burns and Hader is the third most strikeouts in a no-hitter, combined or not, in Major League history, only trailing Nolan Ryan and Max Scherzer. Granted, Corbin had 14 of the strikeouts himself, so it's still a pretty crazy number. It was also wild that this was the 4th no-hitter in baseball history that actually fell on the day September 11. There's one all the way back in the 1800s and 1880s, but I think that's just kind of a funny quirk that there have been 4 no-hitters thrown in baseball history on September 11th.
That is, yeah. I mean, you come up with all kinds of crazy stats, Dom. So
that wasn't me. That was all Sarah Langs. All the credit goes to Sarah Langs. If you don't follow her on Twitter, you should. She wrote an article right after this, and I just remembered that, and that was pretty cool. Corbin Burns no-hitter is our number 2 game of 2021. I think it's a proper spot. I think we're good. I don't hear the mob coming after me yet. I think we're all good. Before we get to number 1 and relive what you clicked on this episode for, to talk about a walk-off grand slam, we got to tell you about BetOnline. Football's over, of course. College hoops is rolling along, and you can get all your latest odds, totals, and player performance props, or even the next fired head coach on betonline.net, the number 1 spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. They've got hockey, boxing, UFC odds, and all the way to Olympic coverage. We're in the home stretch of the Olympics. Tough one the other night for Team USA hockey. Oh well, you can find all of these scores on betonline.net. You can head to the website today, or you can use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline is where the game starts. All right, the number 1 game of the year, Vinny. We have reached the end of the countdown. It is Daniel Vogelbach's walk-off grand slam against the St. Louis Cardinals in the most unlikeliest of fashions, in the most unlikely of games, to close out a series in which the Brewers, were looking to lock it down in the series after there's a lot that happened in this weekend, because you get punched in the mouth on Friday night. You lose 15-4. And then the next night, on Saturday, Adrian Hauser throws his complete game shutout against the Cardinals. And Sunday, it looks like St. Louis is going to be falling out of the race. You don't know what it's gonna hold. And then they have a lead, and then you blink, and Barrelman hits a grand slam. It was just an epic, epic day. And you said you were working that day. So what were you remember thinking heading to the ballpark that day?
No, I mean, I always felt the entire season that, like, hey, we got to win this series. We got to win this series. And even with that big of a lead, you got to win that series, right? I mean, and you got to kind of step on the St. Louis Cardinals' neck when they're down. And they were down. Their bullpen was struggling at this time. So you needed to take advantage and win that series, again, to kind of push them when they're down, because they are capable of, let's say, a 17-game winning streak, in which they went on a few days after that happened. And so they're always looming. You got to get them when you can. So they were able to get them in this game. But yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was coming to the ballpark. Certainly didn't think that they were going to do it in this fashion. But I wasn't feeling good about this game at all until that last inning.
Yeah, it's fair. Well, to your point, they started off the month of September with a 2-5 record in the month. They would finish September going 22-7. So that means they went 20-2 for the rest of the month. Okay, like it lit a fire under them, to say the least. But let's talk about the game itself. Now, as unlikely of Daniel Vogelbach's home run grand slam walk-off was, there was also just as an unlikely one for a different reason that happened in this game. Do you know where I'm getting at here? Do you remember this other home run that was hit in this game?
Well, I'm blanking.
Pablo Reyes hit a home run off of John Lester in this game.
Oh, man.
Exactly.
Left. I don't even remember it.
How crazy
was
is
it?
that?
Like 6? Was it like 6-0 or something at the time, or 5?
No, it was the first run of the game actually.
Oh, it was. Oh my goodness. Okay.
So it was
totally blanking.
Absolutely wild to think about now. And it's funny because I was looking at the stat pack that day because I save all my stats folders here, and on it I always put the starting pitcher matchup versus the lineup in the historical context of like, hey, what's his history against this guy? Going into the game, Pablo Reyes was 5 for 10 in his career against John Lester.
Wow.
How funny is that? You just see guys well, and for Pablo Reyes, it was John Lester, and he snuck one over the left center field wall for the first run of the game. That was a solo homer in the bottom of the second.
Pablo Reyes is an incredible athlete. I mean, he has really, really quick twitch fibers and really quick hands, and I mean, he's just one of these guys that you're waiting for him to pop and kind of figure things out like some other guys have done. With similar skill sets, but yeah, he's been a spark. He was a spark plug for the Brewers whenever he got the chance.
And this was a big series for him because, mind you, Colton Wong was on the paternity list. He waiting for his son Cash to be born.
That's right.
And Willy Adames had injured his quad, so he was out. Willy Adames was on the injured list. So you've got Arias playing short, you got Reyes playing second, and you got Eduardo Escobar playing third. So to have Reyes available and playing and starting here on this Sunday afternoon was huge because, boom, he already gets into the box score against John Lester with a 1-0 lead. And by the way, Corbin Burnes was on the mound, so you knew you were feeling great. This is 6 days before the no-hitter, his previous start before the no-hitter. And it was against the Cardinals, and I remember the first inning, he strikes out Tommy Edman, Paul Goldschmidt, and Nolan Arenado all swinging on all 3 different pitches. And we all kind of looked at each other in the booth. There was a single in that inning, but we all kind of looked at each other in the booth like, oh my God, he's feeling it today. Like, oh no, Corbin's ready to go here in September. That was pretty wild too.
I mean, anytime he took the ball, I was just like astounded by the stuff, right? And the ability to backdoor his cutter now, just command everything really is just, I mean, yeah. I mean, good luck to, and especially with a right-handed dominant lineup that the Cardinals had, you knew that they were in for a rough day against Burnes. But there's some funky stuff that happened in this game. Fill us in, Dom.
So let's move to the 4th inning. Burnes is on the mound. It's still 1-0 Brewers. And this is where the Cardinals got on the board. You get a weak single from Nolan Arenado and a weak single from Tyler O'Neill, and then a 4-pitch walk to Yadi Molina after he was already showing bunt. So all of a sudden, the bases are loaded, and the exit velos on the singles, the little weird singles, were 63 miles an hour and 77 miles an hour. I mean, just absolute duck farts, nothing. And all of a sudden, you blink, and the bases are loaded with nobody out against the Cardinals, and only a 1-0 game. And then Edmundo Sosa hits a fly ball to right, deep enough to score the run on a sac fly. And also, I want to take a little aside here. I know what it feels like when teams have to listen to an opposing team's broadcaster and they get frustrated with little things. And, as a broadcaster, and you're like, all right, that shouldn't bother you. That's, little things that grind your gears, right? Listening to the Cardinals' call of that highlight, literally as the ball says, oh, that should be deep enough to score the run. And then they go on to roast Jackie Bradley Jr. for making a terrible throw. It was 5 yards up the line on the fly. Like, Just a little thing that grinded my gears a little bit. John Rooney and them, they're great broadcasters, don't get me wrong, but I totally get it where the fans are coming from of like, I just want to listen to my guys because Jackie Bradley Jr. has one of the best arms in baseball, and the fact that he even made it a play from a ball that was 5 yards from the warning track tells you about how good his freaking arm is. And now I got Hunter Renfroe, who's also got an epic arm as well, so that's not going to be missing this year too. Just a quick little soapbox there for me. Sorry about that.
I like your soapboxes. Keep going.
Thanks. So
no, just a point I wanted to make about Corbin Burns and the exit velos. He gave up like, I want to say like a very low number of extra base hits, like insanely low. Like he led the league in giving up extra base hits by not even close. It was the next closest was like within like 20 or something. So he gave up a lot of those little duck farts just because his stuff is so nasty and guys are just trying to put the ball and play on him, and that's what does happen. So just a little little tangent from me, a little soapbox from me that's how nasty Burns is.
Do you want me to do some live stats work for you here while we're on the show?
Yeah. Let me hear it.
Well, here you fill some time here as I just try to find them.
I will. I was actually looking for it myself, and I had this stat on the pre and post game show, but it was like, and that's where Corbin Burns really took the lead. I think in the minds of the voters for the Cy Young was his ability to stay off the barrel and really lead in some of these more advanced metrics like weighted runs created against and stuff like this. Like he didn't give up slugging, and it was a lot of singles that he did give up. So like I said, it wasn't. I think the next closest guy was his teammate Brandon Woodruff in giving up extra base hits. But you got it there yet, Dom?
I actually don't have it yet, but
we'll get it.
Not super important because, I mean, you would just rank it by slugging against, not necessarily the raw number of how many runs or how many total doubles or extra base hits or anything like that. Or you can go with FIP, fielding independent pitching, which accounts home runs into it. He had a 1.63 FIP, and you treat FIP like you would treat ERA. So the lower the better, and 1.63, as you can assume, is pretty ungodly. It's pretty freakish. Yeah. So, he only allowed 0.4 homers per 9 innings. He only allowed 7 homers all season, let alone doubles and triples. But 7 homers in a homer-happy era is ridiculous. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but to the game, it's 1-1 now at this point, tied up. Then a little squibber down the third base line. It gets under Escobar's glove, and 2-run score on the play, and now it's 3-1. And you're like, wait, what? What just happened? A ball wasn't hit hard at all. A walk, and then in what was ruled a double, it's an error every day. It should be an error, in my opinion. Escobar's got to get that ball, or at least knock it down, and it turns into a double. You blink, and it's 3-1 Cardinals. Like, whoa, they want to win this series all of a sudden. And then the real backbreaker was Tyler O'Neill came to play against Jake Cousins later in the 7th inning. I don't think this ball has come down yet, Vinny. This ball that Tyler O'Neill hit to make it a 5-1 game and set the stage. 109.5 off the bat and 455 feet to left center field.
Yeah, that ball, I'm pretty sure left the stadium, or if it didn't, it hit that back.
The panels were open, yeah.
It hit that back wall. That's where Sammy Sosa was hitting him when the All-Star game was in Milwaukee when it was Miller Park, I think in 2001. So, yeah, that ball was absolutely tattooed. Tyler O'Neill is going to be a force to be reckoned with in the Central going forward. He's kind of established himself as a legit plus. He's probably the best left fielder in the game, besides Christian Yelich, right? So, that ball was absolutely tattooed. And by the way, 27 extra base hits given up by Corbin Burns. Charlie Morton was second with 36. Now, Burns did have 18 less innings pitched. And so
he did have he had to miss 2 weeks with COVID, by the way. Just remember.
Right. But yeah, 27 extra base hits given up in 167 innings is absolutely ridiculous. So just for whatever that's worth.
So let's fast forward now to set the stage for the 9th inning. So it's 5-1. But mind you, in the bottom of the 8th, the Brewers loaded the bases as well. And Christian Yelich came off the bench. He had the day off to pinch hit against Gallegos and hits a screaming rocket to first that Paul Goldschmidt made a great play on. After this play, it ended the inning. The win probability for the Cardinals was 99%.
Wow.
The computers had it as over. This is over, which is crazy to me. But, looking back, like, yeah, I would believe it too.
Yeah, and think about, and I read Craig Counsell say this, and I totally agree with him after the game, that he said once that happened, you kind of, it takes the wind out of your sails. Like, you load the bases, you think you're going to score at least a couple there, and you got the right guy up, and believe it or not, Yelich was swinging the bat pretty well at this point in the season. He was hitting the ball hard, hits the ball right on the screws, lines out. You think everyone in that dugout thinks they're going to lose at that point. In the Brewers dugout, right? So I mean, it's just a feeling that you get, like, oh man, we're snake bit today, right? It's kind of the idea. It's kind of the feeling that you get, and then they go ahead and they ended up winning this game. But yeah, that was a interesting part of the game where they battled back from that feeling.
So to the bottom of the ninth, Giovanni Gallegos still on the mound, and a leadoff ground rule double by Jackie Bradley Jr. So that certainly helps. And then, boom, Luke Maile cashes him in immediately with a single up the middle. So it's now that spark that you were looking for in the eighth inning, you get in the bottom of the ninth inning, and that brings it up to 5-2. But with only a man on first, and it's your catcher, his run doesn't mean anything. And Luis Urias coming up, he strikes out. So there's one out and a runner on first. You're like, all right, a ground ball and this game's over. This isn't looking good. And then, boom, Jace Peterson, a double down the right field line. Maile, not fast, and his run doesn't mean anything. He gets to third. So it's second and third, one out, and then Eduardo Escobar comes up against Gallegos. And mind you, Gallegos is going for a 5-out save at this point. Gallegos allows a walk to Escobar. And now Mike Schilt, his head's spinning. Bases are loaded. You've got a pinch hitter coming up on deck. What do I do? Do I go with the guy that's suddenly come on here in August and September as being my guy, as being my closer? Alex Reyes has had an awful year. Obviously, Jordan Hicks is not available. Alex Reyes has had an awful second half to this point. In fact, the Brewers had just tagged him a couple weeks earlier with Avi Garcia. What do I do? And he has to go to Alex Reyes. He just has to go to him because Gallegos is clearly out of gas. And the first pitch, mind you, against Vogelbach was a really good pitch. At the knees, looked like a sinker. Should have been called a strike, quite frankly. Didn't get the call, and it's a 1-0 count. You, big league hitter, is there a difference between stepping in the box with the bases loaded and an 0-1 count and a 1-0 count? How big is that difference?
Absolutely. I'm glad that you pointed this out because I remember watching that pitch. I'm like, oh, wow. Brewers have a chance now. If that's 0-1, he goes to the well and throws that nasty break-in stuff, right? Instead, it's 1-0. It definitely changes the complex of that at-bat because now he's got to come into you. You know that he doesn't want to walk a guy. And Schilt is he kind of should have gone to Reyes at the beginning, hindsight 2020, but that doesn't give your closer. I know he had a bad second half. I know he just given up another blown save previously, but now Reyes doesn't have any confidence, and now he's kind of like tightened up a little bit, and he's going to groove something. That's what we'll see here coming up.
I mean, literally the next pitch, because he finds out, all right, well, what I thought was at the knees turns out to be too low, and you could literally see him trying to guide this fastball a little bit higher, and it turns out to be a middle 97 meatball, and Daniel Vogelbach was ready for it and just crushes it to right. We all knew it was gone in the booth the moment he hit it. The crowd all knew it was gone the moment he hit it. I can't explain the adrenaline rush of a guy that isn't playing on the field and is working in the game and like trying to look up everything in the blink of an eye. The adrenaline rush of seeing that go out of the yard was absolutely incredible, and I think the closest thing I'll ever feel to being a professional athlete.
I'm telling you, me and Craig Kashan, he was being really funny at this point in the game, like, kind of just let's get this one over with type of thing. But I looked over at him as soon as that ball was hit with my jaw was on the ground. Like, I knew it was gone right away when he hit it. The sound of the bat, you could tell. You could tell the trajectory. It was a screamer right into the right field bleachers. I just looked right over at him, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen on a baseball field.
Very cool. And just to wrap it up, because we all know what happened. He hits a grand slam. Everyone goes nuts. Pandemonium. First walk-off grand slam since Ryan Braun. Only the 30th ultimate walk-off grand slam in baseball history. And And then he gives the interview, on the Stadium PA with Sophia and on Valley Sports Wisconsin. But Sophia made this point in our interview with her 2 weeks ago. The whole dugout stayed to watch the interview. That doesn't happen ever, where everybody stays to watch the interview. That's how much this team loves Daniel Vogelbach and how much that moment meant to the Brewers and the camaraderie they have. I think that was just a perfect picture of the 2021 season. All of them waiting for him to come down to the dugout and then finally, celebrate even more.
Yeah, and Council summed it up perfectly in the postgame. It was a surreal moment. I think that's why everyone stuck around and watched that interview, because they were witnessing something super surreal, and everyone was just kind of shocked and surprised what they just saw. So, what a cool moment!
Incredible. That's it, dude. We did it. We did 20 games, top 20 games of the year, and the original plan was that obviously this was supposed to be the week pitchers and catchers report, so that way we could actually have things to talk about now. But now we have to figure out something else to do on a day of the week now that this countdown is done.
Well, I think we're going to have a couple interviews next week, right? And that's kind of how we're going to fill. Yeah, we're going to fill Thursday. So
we're gonna hide one of the interviews, but I can report that next week Corey Hart will be joining the show. We got an episode taped and ready to rip with Corey Hart. Can't wait for you guys to hear that. Another interview that I'm not going to reveal yet, I think might generate a lot more pub than Corey Hart, with all due respect, but I'm just going to bite my tongue on that, and once we make it official, we'll share that too. So next week should be a good week of interviews, so you're going to want to keep it locked right here and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to us on YouTube. Just a friendly reminder as well. Vinny, our next episode will be Monday, and I will be calling in from Phoenix, Arizona. I've got my games on Pac-12 Network next week. Super excited to get back on the air, so I'll be hollering at you from the Valley of the Sun next week.
Honestly, I'm looking forward to that, Dom, and can I stream those? Because I'm just chomping at the bit to watch baseball, and I'd love to hear you call a game.
Appreciate it. Yeah, so Pac-12 Network, if you have it, it's on television. You can stream it if you have it in your cable subscription. Pac-12 Network, if you have DirecTV, I'm sorry, you don't have it, but if you have anything else, you probably have it. We're going to have the highest rated game in Wisconsin for Pac-12 Network ever, I guess, if people are going to be watching out here, but thanks for everyone's kind words. I've got next Tuesday, next Friday, and next Tuesday for some Sun Devil baseball action on Pac-12 Network.
Awesome. Looking forward. I think people, you better play some golf too. I just think people I can't wait for baseball, even if it's just college. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, this was a mega long episode, but hey, you can understand why. Thanks so much for listening, everybody. He's Vinny. I'm Dom. We'll see you on Monday. Until then, keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.